another episode of Pats from the Past podcast. Matt Smith here alongside with Paul Perillo, and we're pleased to be joined by former Patriots quarterback Matt Cassel. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Why are you here, Matt? What would bring you back to Foxborough?
What would bring me back to Foxborough is not just the people, the fans, but it's the tribute. Let's be honest. It's the tribute, the retirement ceremony for Tom Brady. And, you know, it was an incredible start to the ceremonies last night when we all got together, a bunch of teammates, old teammates, and familiar faces coming back. So we had a blast last night, and we're looking to continue it tonight.
You're a busy man with a big family, with a lot of responsibilities and everything like that. So it's not the easiest thing to sort of, I'm going to drop everything I'm doing, but was it, and I'm sure, so I mean, I don't want to answer it for you, challenging, but was it an easy decision to make that I wanted to be here?
It was challenging, but it was definitely an easy decision to make. I mean, Tom's a close friend of mine. He's played an important role in my development when I was young, and throughout the years we've stayed close. And just the fact that we get an opportunity to celebrate him tonight and send him out in the proper fashion, it'll be a fun experience for everybody.
You talked about the event that you did on Tuesday night. Any particular teammate that maybe you hadn't seen and you were like, wow, it was great to catch up? I'm sure there were a lot of them, but someone individually that stood out?
You know, there's not one individual. The cool part about it is the thing that you miss most, and we talked about this, is when you leave the game, you miss that locker room. And you had Logan Mankins, Matt Light, Dan Copen, Lonnie Paxton, Kevin Falk, Deion Branch, all these guys that you've had these incredible experiences with, and we played together, we competed together. But to come back all and get into one room and be able to see those guys and pick up where we left off and tell funny stories and old jokes, that's what it's all about. And it's the camaraderie that you really don't experience in other walks of life, but you do in that locker room, and so it's pretty unique.
All right, let's start where it started,
Yeah.
in 2005. And here's a guy who played in one of the best programs in all of college football. You didn't get a chance to play a lot. What were your what realistically, Matt, did you think was going to happen as you entered the draft that year?
Honestly, I was just hoping to catch on as a free agent and prove myself, maybe even get a practice, because my expectations were, hey, if I can get in, hopefully I can get a chance to prove myself. And throughout the process, I had a good pro day and all that stuff, and I had some workouts for about 5 different teams, and I just thought, you know, there is potential here that I will be a free agent somewhere. And then all of a sudden, that last day of the draft, I get a phone call. I was sitting down at my agency. He's like, look, free agency is going to happen quick. We got to be prepared. We're starting to field some phone calls from different teams. And next thing I know, Coach Belichick's on the line and saying, hey, Matt, welcome to the New England Patriots. We're going to take you next in the NFL draft. And my jaw just dropped. I kind of even had to ask him, are you messing with me? Because I didn't think it was realistic, right? I mean, for a guy that threw, I think it was 32 total passes in college, I backed up 2 Heisman Trophy winners, which probably, you know, kind of helped me along the way in terms of the perception of who I could potentially be, but there wasn't any tape out there. And so the fact that they took a shot on me and gave me an opportunity, I'd be forever grateful.
So when you got drafted, you know, we were still doing the newspaper back then, Matt. That's how long ago it was. But, you know, I had your draft profile that year, and I called Pete Carroll, who was the head coach here, my first year working for Patriots.com, and I talked to Pete a little bit, and he gushed about how agonizing the decision was between you and Matt Leinart, and how you guys had sort of toggled back and forth, and, you know, depending on the day that he woke up, he was convinced you were the guy.
Right.
And then it was him, and then it was you. And do you think that maybe Pete talked to a lot of NFL guys, maybe with his, you know, obviously extensive experience, and maybe that sort of helped give you a little bit of a push?
I absolutely think he had an influence on just the ability to know so many different people from a personnel standpoint. And then at the same time, I remember on the pro day before we started our pro day, he would go in and speak to all the scouts individually about each guy. And so I know that we always had a good relationship, and as agonizing as it was for him, it was more agonizing for me to sit there and have to wait and say, you know, I can't, the week before season, getting called into that office and getting the devastating news that what you've been working for, you've been the backup for 3 years behind Carson. I felt like it was my time to go, and then to be told, look, we're going to go with Leinart to start, but if he falters at all, and he took off that first game like a rocket ship, and we go beat Auburn, and then I was like, man, what am I going to do? So I was stuck playing. I went and switched over, played a little tight end that year, played on special teams, did all these different things just because I wanted to play and be a part of it, but I was kind of stuck in that catch-22.
That's why Belichick drafted him.
Yeah, he's like, maybe he'll be on special teams. The more you can do.
Right.
The more you can do.
Okay, so you're here ostensibly, to help celebrate Tom's career. And
Right.
so one of the big things that has happened throughout the years, a rookie comes in, you're in the room with him. What was your first impression when you met Tom?
I pretty much introduced myself in the weakest, nerdiest form and fashion. When he came up, I said, Mr. Brady, Matt Cassel. Because, it's an intimidating environment, right? This guy just came off 3 Super Bowls. You don't know how to, normally you go up and say, hey, what's going on, man? Nice to meet you. I just completely geeked out. Went with a Mr. Brady. He's like, hey, bud, don't call me that. Call me Tommy. I was like, he might have me cut tomorrow based on the fact that he doesn't want to be in the room with somebody like that. But, no, he was incredible from the jump. I mean, we got in there, and then soon thereafter, as we started to get into the workouts that offseason, he's noticed that, look, I was one of those workout warriors too. I like to go in there. I like to work out. And he's like, hey, you want to work out with me? So he kind of took me under his wing at that point. And from that point on, for the next 4 years, we worked out every day with each other. We were in every meeting. But for me, it was just incredible to watch the professionalism day in and day out and his leadership. And it was not just with his words, but it was with his actions. It's how he took care of himself. It's how he interacted with his teammates, how he treated one guy because he thought he could get the most out of this guy. Like Welker, for instance. He could yell at him all day long, and Welker would just continue to go. And then there's other guys that maybe like a Randy Moss that he'd sit there in the locker after practice and just have a general discussion about stuff because how he approached people was different based on their personality and the relationships. So it was just a master class in being a professional quarterback, and then to watch what he did week in and week out was just astounding.
So you get to be part of that room with, the best that's ever done it, and you also get to be coached by a guy who a lot of people think is the best who's ever done it. What do you remember about Bill specifically? And I know Matt and I talk about that story that I think you talked about in the Dynasty documentary about him calling your mom.
Oh, yeah.
Or threatening to call his mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
About being a dumbass because I missed the corner blitz.
Was that your rookie year?
That was my rookie year. Yeah, it was the last preseason game. I didn't see the weak corner blitz, which, hey, they were pretty sneaky about it. They disguised it well. But he definitely called me out in the meeting the next day. He's like, Matt, let's make sure we go through the fronts and check the corner blitz so I don't have to call your mom and tell her, dear Mrs. Cassel, we're sorry your son's in the hospital because he's a dumbass. And in front of the whole team, I was like, yep, I deserve that one. But Bill was incredible because he pushed you to limits that you didn't know that you could go, and he got the best out of each of his players. But I always respected about Bill was he had you better prepared for any situation, situationally speaking, and also just game readiness than I've ever been around. And part of that was even on Tuesdays, taking the time out of his day on a Tuesday, our off day, we'd come in, we'd meet with him, and you've probably heard the story. We sit down, go through every personnel in their defensive back end, safeties, corners, strengths, weaknesses, summarize who they are, then even maybe a potential matchup on linebackers. Talk about the defensive coordinator and also his lineage and where it came from. Then we'd watch film on all these guys. So by the time you came in on Wednesday, you're rolling. You understand why we're implementing certain pass schemes and concepts, who we're trying to attack on specific routes, who we're trying to take advantage of. And so you had this confidence going into game week, understanding why we're doing certain things. And there was never that, wait, what are we doing? And if there was, it was answered, right? And so, and the other thing I always appreciated about Bill was he was always held everybody to the same standard of accountability. It wasn't like, hey, if you're this guy and you're a big name, you're off limits. And I've been around that type of program before too. No, it was, look, if you're Tom Brady or if you're a free agent, it doesn't matter. If you've messed up, I'm going to call you out. We're going to correct it here. It might not be something that, everybody's cup of tea, like to sit there and get it in the meeting room. But at the same time, it set a level of expectation and a standard for everyone.
Paul mentioned the room, Matt, and your rookie year, it's 3-time Super Bowl champ Tom Brady.
Right.
Your offensive coordinator, who wasn't a coordinator by name, is Josh McDaniels at that time because Charlie had just left.
Right, Charlie just left.
And 97-year-old, not Vinny, but with the mullet, Doug Flutie.
Dougie.
What was that quarterback room like, Matt?
It was wild. Actually, when I first got here, there was 5 guys on that depth chart. So they put up the depth chart, and I'm going, gosh, I got some work to do. It was Tom Brady, Rohan Davey, Doug Flutie, Chris Redmond, and then myself. And I was like, man, these are a lot of veterans, and I am a low man on this totem pole. But the cool part was, as it all worked out, I was able to establish some credibility there in preseason and make the team. But then Doug was there, and Doug was hilarious because Doug was 41, right? Mm-hmm. He's 41. He almost had a daughter that was my age. He would drive into the facility and have this huge Trans Am with this eagle on the front of it, like living in the 80s.
Oh, he's still like that, by the way.
He's beautiful. And he's like a little kid, though. He would talk about he'd play in this hardball baseball league on the weekends. He'd go down to Fenway all the time to shag balls.
With his glove.
With his glove. I mean, he loved it. And so the stories were just unbelievable day to day. And the only time that you started to see his age were when those night meetings hit, and sometimes you kind of look over and you're like, is Doug nodding off right now? I think he might be. He's like, gosh, I feel you. Now I'm 42 and I'm sitting there. I can't believe he was still playing at that time.
I remember this, and you're never going to remember this. Well, you remember the drills, but I remember doing a video story, because I was intrigued. Who am I? I'm a moron. But every game, pregame, Cassel and Flutie would do this contest, an accuracy contest, where they'd be sitting there and they'd try to hit the goalpost.
The crossbar, right?
The crossbar game.
I didn't know that.
I remember that.
And it was so cool to see you guys like really competitive. Like, hey, these might be the only throws we're going to get all day. But you were really into it. And it was an accuracy test?
There was an accuracy test. So you tried to hit the crossbar. We'd start at the 15-yard line, go back to 20, 25, 30. I think we might have even got to about the 40 is when and whoever collectively hit the crossbar from all those spots won, and we do it before every game. It was just a fun little ritual, and it was something that he just was like, hey, Cass, let's play. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And then it started to become a tradition where we did on every pregame we'd go out there and throw.
So awesome.
So most Patriots fans would probably say the most memorable thing that Flutie did was the game that he had, the drop kick, right?
Yeah.
So that game is really memorable for Matt and I, also because you played a big role in it at the end, right?
I did.
So that finale against Miami.
Set the stage.
I'm trying, guy.
I could set it for you too.
So he can speak for himself too, but it was sort of playoff seeding at play, and I know that Bill Belichick would never. Maybe intentionally not want to win a game, but it certainly seemed we tied the game in the last minute or so.
You took them right down, the clock,
and the 2-point conversion to tie the game. Well,
Bam
we
Childers.
get within 2. Oh yeah. See, I didn't remember Bam Childers.
No, but the other thing is that I remember, because I remember looking at the tape, is the sideline tape is they score immediately. They bring the huddle over the field, and there's Bill, and there's Tom, and everything. They're talking to Matt, and it's like, it's obvious that they want to talk about this, and it's not like necessarily what's the best play to score here.
No, you know what the interesting part was it was a 2-point play that we had practiced. It was a go on the outside, and Bam was supposed to set him up, stab inside, and come out, and it was a sprint out. And they were having a conversation. You like this play? I was like, let's go for it, because we knew that they were going to pressure us, right? Because that was Saban's mentality.
Right.
And so it was more of a movement play instead of sitting back there and having to throw like a fade route or something. And he was my number one read. And I'll tell you what, I came out, I saw him wide open, and my eyes got big, and I sailed that ball. And everybody still to this day says, Coach Belichick, look, our seedings weren't going to improve. Tell us the truth. Throw it over his head. No, he honestly called that play to score. I don't think there was any part of him that did ever even considered, like, let's throw this away. He never said that to me.
That's a good soldier.
So, it's a great soldier, but it's also breaking news. Who says we don't break news on the Pats from the Past podcast?
Absolutely.
Because I will guarantee you that 99% of Patriots fans think
absolutely
you hit the CBS scene on purpose.
I appreciate that.
Right.
I appreciate that.
I'm just going to keep going with it.
Yeah, it was an errant throw.
So I was going to ask you if there was something specific that was talked about. Listen, we might not really want to go overtime in this game, but no. It was just, we're going to run the play.
And that was the beauty of the play itself, was people thought that because if we go to overtime, we've got to play next week in the playoffs. I get all that, but there was none of that discussion on the sideline. It's hilarious. And still this day, everybody's like, no, we know. Come on, tell me the truth.
Is that the power of Belichick, though? I mean, really, when you think of it, here's somebody who literally, like, jerks like us aren't there. We can sit there and have an opinion. But he's in the huddle. They bring him over to the sideline. Here's the call. He says, the guy was wide open. I should have hit him. I sailed the throw. It hit the CBS scene video board. And we're sitting there because we think that Belichick's pulling puppets and everything like that. Okay, Matt, sure, play this leg and pull this leg and play Jingle Bells. You know? That's funny.
It is the truth, though. I'm telling you guys, that was the right play.
That's hilarious. Let's go forward a year, Matt, to 2007. Which for many, many reasons is a season that should be celebrated here in New England. Maybe
100%.
not with the banner,
Yep.
but should be celebrated in New England. How good was that team? As one who had a chance, a front row seat to see greatness there.
It was unbelievable. I mean, even going into that offseason, I think the expectations started to rise. But also, we had all these new toys. We had the Ferraris on the outside. We have Randy Moss. We have Wes Welker, Dante Stallworth, Jabbar Gaffney, Rashae Call. I mean, we were loaded. Tight end room was outstanding. Daniel Graham and Ben Watson. So we had a full complement. And throughout that offseason, I was like, man, we're really good. I mean, because I had been there, and we always were successful, but this was a different breed of team. And then we got to that first week against the Jets, and I was like, oh, man. It's what I expected, but I didn't know that it was going to happen that quick, where we just dominated teams for probably until about, week 8, 9, when we finally had a game against Baltimore where we had to come back. We had to throw to Jabbar Gaffney. And
it's probably later than that.
Right? That was later than that. The Colts game in Indy that year was, you guys were down 10, I think, and Tom had to bring him back.
Right.
Welker scored to get it close, and then Falk, I think, scored the game-winning touchdown.
Yes, that was a game too. So later in the season, we started to get a little bit better competition, but the season itself was just a masterpiece in terms of the confidence level that Brady had throughout the year, the chemistry that he had with all those guys, particularly with Randy and Welk, was just incredible to see in person and watch, and to see their work ethic week in and week out. And then even you go to week 16 against the Giants, and I was supposed to play in that game, right? I was getting reps that week. They're like, hey, be prepared probably about the first quarter or so. Second quarter, you're going to go in this game, because we were locked up. And all of a sudden that game started, and the intensity was like a playoff game.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it was unreal, because we couldn't improve our seed, obviously.
Right.
And
nor could they.
And the anticipation was, okay, we're going to go out here, we'll play our guys, and then get ready for playoffs. And then all of a sudden, this first quarter ends, and I vividly remember Tommy coming to the sideline saying, I'm not coming out of this fucking game. And to a man, all those guys were like, let's go. And there was something more than just week 16. It was something more than just competitive. They knew what was at stake going 16-0. And when Brady said that, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to play in this game. But it was the back and forth of that game was unreal, and the intensity of it. It really was like another playoff game before we even started.
And that was one of the few games that you didn't get to play that year, because you had so many 38-14 games. You got a lot of work that year.
Right, got a lot of work, and got in a bunch of those ball games because we were just blowing out a ton of teams, and it was just like, well, Cassel's going in here.
When you look back at those, Matt, and you probably don't get a lot of reps in practice because Tom gets all the reps.
100%.
But do you get any reps where maybe you're thrown to Randy, maybe you're thrown to Wes? And what did that do from a development standpoint? You don't know where your career is going to go at that point in time. You're backing up the greatest quarterback.
Right.
He was probably that at the time. What was that like to be able to work with those guys to help you down the road when you finally did get a shot?
Yeah, some of it was individual drills. Every now and then I'd get a bone and get to throw to those guys. And the big development part for us was sometimes preseason, right? Preseason, I got to start that 4th preseason game. I got to go, and there was times where they let me go with the starters, and so you develop a little bit of chemistry there. But and then, like I said, during training camp is really they'll give you some reps with the ones occasionally. And so that was pivotal for me to develop a little bit of chemistry with those guys. But overall, I'm telling you, if Tommy wanted to throw a ball, sometimes Josh would put me in to throw one of these pass concepts that we have that he's run a million times. He's like, hey, let me get this. And I'll be like, oh, you son of a... Come on, bro. Let me have one throw. But, so you don't get that much time on task with those guys. But in the offseason and that, you get a little bit more. And that was pivotal in terms of just kind of developing those relationships for sure.
So what was it like the following year? You obviously expectations sky high again in 2008.
Right.
And then Tommy goes down first quarter, 10 minutes into the game, and all of a sudden you're thrust into it. What was your mindset like going into that?
Well, I was lucky and fortunate because that preseason, Tommy was dealing with a little bit of a foot injury, so I got to start a few more games than I normally would have. Probably played a little bit more in the preseason. So
I remember.
That was helpful in terms of just getting yourself prepared to play. Because those games, I always say that was for a guy like me who was a backup, was such an important aspect of my development because it's live games, live bullets. And now you might not have the same competition as going up against the ones all game long. And you can see that as your career gets older, those ones like, I got to play in the preseason, now they're down to 2. But that development was huge. And then week 1 hit, and I was back in the position I normally am. I'm sitting there watching, and I remember that play like it was yesterday when Randy caught the ball down the sideline, he fumbles, and I'm watching, but I hear the hush come over the stadium. And then I look back and I see Tom down. And I've seen Tom down a few times. He's one of the toughest guys I've ever played with. But the fact that he wasn't getting up and that the doctor was out there meant something was a little bit more intense here. And then to watch him go in the locker room and Bill just casually come over and say, Cassel, get your helmet, you're going in. Just like that.
Unbelievable.
There was no panic. There was no like, let's make this bigger than it is. It's just like matter of factly, hey, get ready to go. And then they punt it down to the 1 yard line, and we start going. We run the ball, and Randy runs a route that he wasn't supposed to. He's supposed to run the quick post. Patrick Surtain jumps inside. He runs right by him just because he's a savvy vet and saw it. And I come up off the fake anticipating the inside post, and he's 10 yards behind Patrick Surtain, went right by him. And going down, and I was like, all right, I'll just throw it out there, see what happens. He catches it and goes 56. So, but I don't know if it really set in until after that game, right? When the media attention that week, the noise that was coming outside the building, every media outlet was trying to get an interview about, who you're going to bring in, want to do a sit down, you haven't played, all the different storylines behind my career. And that's when I had to I had to try to decompress a little bit. And then, getting back in the building though that week was huge for me because once you're in this building, the routine is the same week in and week out. And that's one of their strengths is that once you're here, it's a work-like mentality. You're going to come in, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get prepared. We're not going to talk about who's here, who's not. Whoever's playing is getting ready to go. And so they did a great job of just kind of keeping me on task that week.
That Monday, I don't know that it was a gong show, okay, but I'm sure Pioli was making calls and all the, you said, 5-alarm fire, Chris Sims, this guy, that guy are all coming in. What's going through your mind at that, and then maybe more importantly, what did it mean to you when, I don't know if anybody came up to you and said, hey, Matt, it's you. We're riding with you.
Can I just add to that real quick before you answer it? My recollection is that they had some visits planned and Bill pulled the plug on them and just said, I think the thought process that Bill probably had was he doesn't need any veterans coming in looking over his shoulder. It's him.
Right.
We're going with Matt, and he doesn't need that. Is that true, or am I making that up?
You know what? It might have been. I tried to stay out of that as much as possible. I was like, I had enough on my plate, to be honest with you. But the fact that they didn't bring somebody in, and now that would create more noise and more chatter even inside the locker room. Who's going to be playing? Is Cassel your guy? Are they going to have a quick plug on him where they're going to pull him as soon as he has any issues, with the team? And then we won those first 2 games. We get boat raced by Miami. We go out. We beat San Francisco. We get beat by San Diego. So we kind of had that back and forth. And I remember right after San Diego coming home from that trip, Bill coming in and talking to me and just saying, hey, you're doing fine. We're on the right path. And I don't want you thinking about this side or the other. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're our guy. And that gave me confidence. When he said, I've got your back, you're our guy, and he told me that straight to my face. And look, you don't get a lot of that from Bill. You don't get a lot of reassurance. It's do your job, all that stuff. But the fact that he did say that kind of was a turning point for me because I think the next week was Denver, and we went out and had a heck of a night. And from there, we started to play some good ball.
I'm going to go back, though, to week 2 in your first start.
Yep.
And, there was, oh, my gosh, Matt Cassel this, Matt Cassel that. It wasn't a work of art, but you went down there and you beat the Jets. And I just remember famously seeing the locker room video and telling and saying, we got to use this, we got to use this. And they're rolling the eyes and everything like that. But the famous quote, Matt, they said you hadn't started a game since the F in 7th grade. Well, I guess you started one now. And the genuine emotion that your teammates felt for you and the smile on your face at that time, and that's not the easiest spot to get in. It's an NFL team. It doesn't matter who it was. You must have had a tremendous amount of pride.
Oh, man. I mean, it's one of the most memorable parts of my entire career, just coming in, your first start, going up against one of your idols, Brett Favre, who's the first guy to run across the field, shake my hand.
Wow.
First guy, he comes up and he says, "Hey, congratulations, I'm so happy for you," with this big smile on his face. And I was like, I used to wear the Brett Favre cleats in high school. Okay?
Wow.
Like, it was.
That's really cool.
And then to go into that locker room and to see the faces and to have those guys rally around me the way that they did, the hugs, the yelling, the screaming, and it was just that special moment in sports, you know, that you've worked for and that you dream about as a kid, to be in that locker room, and then all of a sudden it happens and you win a game. And my career didn't go exactly the way that I wanted it to, but the fact that I was sitting in the New England Patriots locker room being the starting quarterback for my first start and winning was pretty special.
Awesome.
That is, Phil, first of all, I'll tell you, that game was the only time I ever really got yelled at by Patriots personnel because, again, we still did the paper then, and we used to put picks in the paper, and we all picked the Jets.
Yeah.
There was like 3 of us.
Right.
And we got back on the bus. We were on bus 4 at the time. And, you know, all your video guys.
Jimmy.
Jimmy undressed me. How's that pick?
Yeah. How
I'm
do you
like-
like that, Amples?
I'm like, and, you know, I'm teasing Jimmy D, who's
Right.
longtime video coordinator here for the Patriots. He's apologized a million times for that. But I was like, yeah, Jimmy, I just picked who I thought was going to win. I go, hey, I said I picked us to win the Super Bowl last year too. I didn't hear you yelling. I didn't hear you yelling at me when I got that one wrong.
That's exactly right.
You know, so we got a laugh out of it. But I'm really that's a great story about Brett Favre because Matt and I talk about the second time you played Favre that year, and I know it ended in a loss in overtime, but that may have been the best game, you know, of that season for you. I mean, I know you had a couple of 400-yard games there back-to-back, but that was an unbelievable performance you guys had offensively there.
Was the throw to Moss the best throw of your career?
Yeah,
One
that's
of
right.
them?
It was
That's
one
right.
of them, for sure. I mean, it's up there.
Good
for
catch,
sure.
too, by the way. I
Great
don't wanna
catch.
take it- yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the crazy part about that game is it's a Thursday night game.
Yeah.
So, you know, the week is just chaotic. And you come in, you're putting together a game plan. We had like a full game plan set up of different checks at the line of scrimmage, this, that, and the other. And if you remember, they got out to a substantial lead pretty early. I think they were up 14. And then we just said, we're going 2 minute. So we went 2 minute the rest of that game. And then it was that last minute drive that we went on. And I just remember he caught it on Ty Law, which I was giving him crap about that last night. And Ty's like, "Oh, yeah, Cass, well, I picked you off for my last pick of my career." I was like, I don't remember that one, but I do remember this one.
I'm sure
No,
Ty
but I
remembers
just
that.
remember Randy saying, "Hey, I'm going to post him up." Because it was one of those plays. It was the last play of the game. He had to get in the end zone. So everybody was supposed to go get in the end zone, and I was going to try to buy some time and see what. And I just remember Randy sitting there in the corner, and he had him posted up like this with his big white paw out and his glove. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. And he tippy-toed that thing. And I was like, I didn't know if he was in or not, but the crowd erupted,
Yeah.
and then they came back, and it was like, man. And then I was like, just give us the ball.
Right.
Because they couldn't stop us offensively.
Right.
If we got that ball, we're going to go down. We're going to win that game. And then they got it, and they had a 3rd and like 15 and converted and went down and kicked the field goal. And that was one of the more devastating losses just based on where we were in the season and also the fact that we felt we had it. Just the momentum had shifted so dramatically.
Right. There's a this is a
Dustin
nerd.
Keller.
Yeah.
Converted
This
the
is-
3rd and
The
15. I
3rd and
remember.
15, right over the ball, too. A little
Right.
Hank route.
Right. This is a nerdy one for me, but I remember, you know, one of the times going back there and seeing in the football facility, and Bill and Bears are, you know, getting pictures after a win. Oh, look at this picture. Oh, look at this play. Look at this play. And I remember seeing the picture
Randy?
of the throw to Randy, and I'm sitting there going, it's one of the greatest pictures I've ever seen. Like, here's the ball, Matt's throwing it, Randy's right there. It's the great still picture. I'm going, why would that picture? How is that picture not on the walls here at Gillette Stadium? And like Bears looks at me and goes, lost a game, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's the thing is those pictures only go up after victory.
Yeah.
And some of them are, you're like, gosh, that was such a good play. Oh, yeah, we lost that game. Never mind. Okay. Moving on.
Right.
Next one.
So
But
as
I would think.
Oh, go ahead,
So,
Matt.
no, sorry, Paul. But I mean, you speak about this a lot, and we've talked about this a bunch. We talk about probably the greatest coach in the history of the NFL, who's got more Super Bowls than anybody else,
Right.
with the Patriots, with the Giants. The way that he talks about that 2008 team, it's
He has a lot of pride in that team.
he has so much pride in that team, and you didn't make the playoffs. You know, horrific weather conditions in Buffalo.
Oh,
You're waiting for somebody. You need this to happen, that to happen, and it doesn't work out for you guys. When you look back on that year, it sucked that you didn't make the playoffs. But do you look back at it and you know what? For a guy that only had 30-something snaps in college to come in and take over for the greatest player in the game, you know what? We gave it a ride.
Yeah, it's not until you go and you kind of look back and just especially the circumstances, right, and what you're thrust into, the stress of just the position in general, but also where we were as a team and coming off the year that we had the year before, and then to go out and really I didn't know what I was capable of, and this team obviously didn't know because I hadn't played, and to go out and to accomplish what we did that season, and also the teams, like the teammates that I had to rally around me the way that they did. I couldn't have done it without those guys. And to go out and not get that opportunity in playoffs was more than disappointing, right? Just because I thought we were playing our best football at the end of the year. And I think that we probably could have given it a pretty good run. But at the end of the day, it was one of those seasons that I was, I'll be forever grateful that I had that opportunity. And at the same time, we accomplished a lot considering what the circumstances were to start the year.
It's funny. Right at the day after that game, we got back because the plane ride home was like, we're watching the Miami Jets game. But Vince Wilfork was sitting right where Matt is, and Ty Warren was here, and I was where you are, and we were talking, and we finished up the interview, and we got done, and I kind of said that, I go, geez, you guys feel like it would have been dangerous, and like they had the whole talk was like how disappointing, like we came so far, and Matt did so well, and he led us, and he put us in position, and 11-5. It's a great year. It's too bad. And so we get done, and I looked at them. And I was like, "You really think we could have been dangerous?" And like, "Oh no, I think we're out of gas, dude." And I was like, "Whoa!" I wasn't expecting that answer.
Yeah. Like, wait a second. We, guys, come on, seriously.
No, I'm sure everybody would have rallied and everything, but that was just sort of my mind's eye. Vince and Ty were like, I think we got. I think we squeezed every ounce of wins that we had that year. I mean, it was. I think Matt's characterization of the way Bill talks about that team is really accurate. I think he was really proud of that team.
Yeah,
rightfully so.
Because I think he even at some point in the near maybe 09, 10. No, it was probably 11 when Peyton got hurt and was out for the whole year in Indy, and they went 2-14.
Yeah,
and I think he had a couple of cracks. Like, we're not one of these teams that our starting quarterback gets hurt and the season unravels.
Right.
And I think
there's a lot of pride in that.
And I think it was a lot of pride in you and what you did. And
no question.
I think that sort of came through when Bill talks about it.
Right. Final one here for me, Matt, and the postscript maybe to your Patriots career. This is the way I see it. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it almost seems like they did you a solid, And here's an opportunity. It's not a parting gift. It's business, after all. Let's not get carried away and anything.
Right.
But giving you an opportunity to go to Kansas City, how did you, sad that you're leaving New England, but here's a fresh opportunity, fresh off of what you did, to try to then go and have the career that you want to have.
Right. And I owe all the credit to Coach Belichick, because even after that season, I don't know if a lot of people realize they franchised me.
Right.
And I couldn't have signed that thing quicker. So I signed it. I was like, man, okay, great. So I signed it, and really not understanding what my future was going to hold at that point, because Tom was coming back. At some point, he's coming back. And I knew that was obviously, he's Tom Brady, and that's what's going to happen. But I didn't know where I was going to go. And then Pioli got the job. Josh McDaniels goes to Denver. There was talk about potential Denver. And then the trade goes through to Kansas City, and I was like, it's a fresh start. But at the same time, there was so many adjustments that had to be made, because the Patriots do it one way, right? And so when you get to a new city with a new team, a team that had been struggling for quite some time, and then come in, the expectation levels are different. And so there was an adjustment period there, but I was forever grateful that he put me in a position to go sign that deal and go play for Kansas City and give me another opportunity to be a starter in this league. And I give him all the credit for just the development and what he did, his belief in me, giving me that opportunity and letting me ride that thing out early in the season. And then also, he was also one of those guys that was there and would, when I'd see him, call him, anything like that, he would always pick up. He's just been tremendous.
And you got a chance to play in the playoffs. I mean, people, I think forget just how good you played that first at Pro Bowl, I think.
Went to Pro Bowl. That was 2010. Yeah,
okay,
our first year,
Who was your Pro Bowl coach, by the way?
Huh?
Who was your Pro Bowl coach?
Billy Belichick, baby. That's what I'm saying. So I got to come see all the boys there too. So
Nice.
I mean, it was that was a cool experience too, to go out there and Coach Belichick be our coach. But the funny part is we get into that first meeting and they're talking about what we're going to run. I'm like, I know this offense. This is going to be great. And they're like, completely different offense. They changed it to a number system. I never played in a number system in my life. I'm sitting there going, Coach, what the hell is this? Like, didn't even run the offense. I was laughing, just going, okay, well, we'll have to figure it out when we get out there.
That's great. Matt, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best of luck going forward. Have a great time tonight.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a blast.